Hello, and welcome to Live Vedanta, a podcast about simple living and high thinking. Each week, we join Vivek Gupta, the resident guide of Chinmaya Mission Niagara, as he explores how to bring the divine into the daily. In this season, we're exploring 100 words that are at the heart of Vedanta. If you've missed the first few episodes, you can always go into the show notes to catch the last one or start from the very beginning. But what are we focusing on this week? As we find ourselves running between our numerous responsibilities, living can feel like a marathon without a clear finish line. How do we get out of the hamster wheel and find stable ground again? What do's and don'ts will it take to get there? Let's tune in to hear Vivekji's next steps on our stairway to serenity.
Hari Om. Greetings from Niagara Falls. In our culture, that is Vedic culture, we have samskaras. A samskara is a ritual to remind us to live intentionally. The 10th samskara is called akshara abhyasa or vidyarambha. Don't get lost in those two words. What happens in this ritual? This happens when you're around 5 years old. By a quick show of hands, how many of you engaged in a vidyarambha or aksharabhyasa? Only a few. When you're 5 years old, you learn to write your first word. Anyone want to guess what your first word should have been in terms of writing? That's right. It is Om, but spelled A-U-M, okay? It is Om. And I'm particularly sharing that because in Sanskrit, the first letter is A and the last letter is M. From childhood, our culture encourages everyone to develop virtues. Whether it's the first word you write, that is Om, or one of the first games you play, that is the mokshapata. To keep on living for virtues. Can you imagine feeling that every day, every experience is a game? And if you become virtuous, that is you being victorious. What an awesome seed to be planted in one's mind when they're young. We're all taught to be winners. A winner is one who defeats another. Instead, to be taught to be victorious, that is to defeat yourself. Now, the majority of us are not children anymore. We're adults. So what good is the mokshapata? To unlearn vices. For kids, learn virtues. For us to unlearn vices, to unlearn that it's okay to be angry, to unlearn that it's okay to be jealous. In our mokshapata, we are taking up Vedic terms like moksha, like atma, etc. The majority of you already know these terms. But politely, you know these intellectually. And for those who joined Meaningful Mornings, what was the word that I described intellectual understanding as? Intellectually understanding is the same as superficially understanding. They're the same. In this course, we are focusing on quality, a quality of understanding towards these terms, because anything that is higher in quality has a higher impact. Whether it's a medicine or a relationship. We began our journey through the moksha pata with forgetfulness. Where there's forgetfulness, what else will come? Desire. If there's desire, what is going to be clubbed with that? Attachment. In our last class, we learned about bhaya. Bhaya means fear. As long as we externalize that which is important, we will always be afraid. Please think deeply about this. If you externalize your sense of security, you're always going to be afraid. If you externalize your relationship with your creator, you will even be afraid of your creator. And so a way to address bhaya or fear is to internalize your sense of security, to internalize the presence of your creator. And a most practical way to do this, the word bhaya, what is a very similar sounding and looking word to bhaya? We use this word all the time. The English meaning is fortunate or lucky. Bhagya, correct? The only difference between bhaya and bhagya is G. When one invests more in themselves, they go from bhaya to bhagya, from feeling fear to feeling fortune. Our next word, moha. Moha means confusion. Whenever we are confused, we have to find someone who is clear or trying to be clear. Otherwise, I think there's a common saying, blind leading the blind, correct? I'm unclear and you're unclear. We feel like this is math. Two negatives make a positive. We only compound that confusion. Be around those who are clear. And I'll give you a very strong example of this. I remember hearing Swami Tejomayananda share. This was at a parenting workshop. You should be so available for your child that even if they kill someone, that the first person they will come and tell is that parent. That is a very strong example, but a very right example, correct? Because if someone is engaged in a most illegal and immoral activity, if they go to someone who's like that, that's going to become worse, correct? But if they go to their parent, at least there will be some sense of direction. Be around those who are clear. We continue. All of you received the moksha pata. You've seen this visually. So tell me, what comes after moha then? I did introduce this last week. Samsara. Samsara in English means society. The etymology of this word, samsarati, which means that which is ever slipping away. When we reflect on society, is society not ever changing? In business school, whenever we analyzed a company, we would have to put it through a pest analysis. Do you all know what a pest analysis is? It is to study that company in reference to the political environment, the economic environment, the sociological environment, and the technological environment. Now, if we think of politics, isn't everything always changing? Yesterday, the American government was going to shut down. Today, the American government's not going to shut down. In October, the American government may shut down again. It is ever changing, correct? Technology-wise, the same. We started using Ustream, then Fuse, then Zoom. Who knows what program will come next? It is ever slipping. And if you're depending on that which is ever slipping, ever changing, what is going to happen to your body? If you're always chasing that which is slipping away, what's going to happen to your body? It is going to become tired. What's going to happen to your mind? Your mind is going to become bored. That is a counterintuitive thought. We feel studying or experiencing the same subject is boring. Conversely, if a subject or experience keeps on changing, you get bored from that. And what happens to the intellect? It becomes dejected. A few days ago, Shuka wanted something from our trunk. He wanted a dump truck. So I opened up our trunk and the dump truck fell out and it fell on its wheels. So it kind of started sliding down the driveway on a sloped driveway. So he would try to get it, but he's shorter and he has short legs. So every time he would go to bend down to get it, it would slip away. So he'd chase it some more and try to get it and it would slip away. And eventually he just said, up, I can get it. See how tired, frustrated, and dejected he was in a matter of 30 seconds. That's society. Now, personalizing this more, though. Do you all remember the 6 enemies that I've been referencing? And I put them in a diamond. At the top was desire. If you don't get your desire, anger. If you get your desire, greed. When you're angry, what happens? You become confused. When you're greedy, what happens? You become arrogant. Everyone's with me in terms of those 5 points. Now, the devolving from being confused or arrogant, the last enemy, does anyone know what that is? It is matsarya, which means jealousy or insecurity. Those who do not understand society, do not understand the nature of society, they keep trying to depend on it, but all that happens is they become insecure. When we are disoriented by the perpetual change, what we need to do is find a subject, find a experience that is meaningful. Start small, and then eventually let that grow into a universal meaning. Such as, if you're feeling very dejected tonight, not in class, but after class because class is complete, you feel very dejected. What should you do? Pick up a simple book and read 1 page. Start small. And the more you build up your confidence, you'll be able to take on a more universal meaning, like the purpose of your life, to be happy, and so on. Those who do not attempt to hold on to some meaning, they continue to live instinctively. Those who do take up some meaning and allow that to grow, they become intentional. To move up the moksha pata, intention is almost that step forward. Samsara complete, we continue to yama. The next space in our journey, in our game, is yama. Yama means restrictions, or a simpler word is don'ts. Don'ts. Where have you heard the word yama before? Share in the chat where you've heard yama. This is a very popular word in a popular framework. Yamaraj, sure. Yes. In the association with yoga. Rishi Patanjali has shared a framework called Ashta Anga Yoga, which means the 8 rungs of yoga. In other words, these are 8 practices for one to become a better person. And do you know what the first rung is? Yama. Before I get into detail on yama, yoga, and specifically Ashtanga yoga. How many of you go to a yoga studio to learn asana, etc.? So you're familiar with these terms, correct? Next time you go to your yoga studio, record it for me. I would be so fascinated to hear what your yoga teachers, your yogasana teachers teach you. These 8 limbs all have the purpose to provide balance. Asanas to balance the body, pranayamas to balance the breath. All of this is about balance. Even if you think of a ladder in a very elevated way, the higher you climb on a ladder, imagine now you're 10,000 feet in the air, you're becoming more balanced in the sense that you've crossed out of turbulence, out of noise. So balance. Why is yama the first? Don't is to stop doing that which is making us imbalanced. Stop doing it. And before I share more on this, what are some things that you intentionally, consciously, regularly do that makes you imbalanced? Share in the chat. And don't say nothing. You're just lying to yourself and you're lying to me. Eat junk food, get angry, WhatsApp, sleeping late, procrastinating, worrying. Don't do it. That's what yama is. And a practical way to engage in this don't is to have parameters in your lifestyle. See, those who listen to loud music, imagine someone said, don't ever listen to music. That doesn't sound very practical. Last week in class, I told you to listen to music. But set up a parameter. How loud will you listen to music? How much music will you listen to? Lifestyle parameters. In terms of what time you'll sleep, what time you'll wake up, how much you'll interact with friends. These lifestyle parameters, they create space for us. How many of you have to do dishes tonight? How do you start your dishes? If there's dishes in both sinks, you take it out of one sink to create space, correct? And then you start washing those dishes. That's called yama. And this is so obvious. Why does this have to be in the Moksha Patha? Isn't it obvious that we should bring some balance in our lives to be able to continue, to be able to grow? There are 5 yamas or don'ts. I'm only going to share one for your reference. It is aparigraha. It's a long word. Aparigraha. Show me graha. Graha is this, to hold. Parigraha, to hold tightly. And if you put that prefix a, what does it mean? It means to let go. Whenever people used to give dakshina or funds to Swami Chinmayananda, he used to give it to different causes. And then he would put his hands like this and go and say, CCMT, Central Chinmaya Mission Trust. The acronym is CCMT. So you would say, CC, it's empty. It took you a long time to figure out what I was talking about. That he would never hold on to it tightly. He would just share that. To create space and balance, non-collecting. Aparigraha technically means non-collecting. After yama, naturally, what will be the next word? The next space in our journey? Niyama. Niyama means commitments. Yama is restrictions or don'ts. Niyamas are commitments or dues. Are you all aware how powerful your mind is? How many of you feel you are aware of how powerful your mind is? Okay. I'm skeptical of those who have their hands up. I do not feel we realize how powerful our minds are, just in terms of sheer volume. I've read some studies that have quantified we have 60,000 thoughts a day. Let's say that's 500,000 a week. 500,000 thoughts. Our minds are not programmed to not do. What will happen to these 500,000 thoughts? Don't think, don't do. The don't has to be balanced with the do. That way, the power of this mind is used to help you rather than harm you. A niyama. More specifically, these thoughts, their default is to be extrovert. By show of hands, how many of you would describe yourself as an extrovert? Okay. And not a lot of you have your hands up because you know that an extrovert is not just someone who talks a lot or brags a lot. An extrovert is one who thinks they're going to find happiness or moksha outside of themselves, externally. That's the yama that has to be set up, that you're never going to be free externally. The niyama is to change that extroversion to introversion. You still have to think, but what should you think about? Think about what freedom is, what freedom will feel like. There are also 5 niyamas. The one I'm going to encourage all of you to explore is shaucha. Shaucha. All those who were born in India, whenever you hear shaucha, what do you think of? Be honest, what do you think of? Purity, cleanliness. You think of a toilet. Shauchalaya means toilet or bathroom. Stop lying. In a very limited way, yes, shaucha means cleanliness. In a more subjective sense, shaucha means to be organized. To be organized. Once you've created some space in your life, what should you do now? Organize your lifestyle so that there's more space. Make sense? We continue. Our next word is utsava. Can you all show me what you feel like when you're in an utsava? Yeah. Those who really know what this means, they're raising the roof. And those who don't know what they mean, hooray. Utsava means festival. This has a really lovely etymology. Utsava means to sit above. So you feel uplifted. Okay, so it means festival. It is the sense of being uplifted. Giving you some context. In 2016, when Puja Swami Tejo Mayananda had come to North America, this was his last time coming to North America. And I and Sheila were bhagya to be his first hosts on this trip. We got to pick him up from the airport. He stayed with us. We traveled with him. And one day we were driving from Niagara Falls to London, just us 3. And it's a 2-hour drive. And he was looking through my CDs. Do you all remember CDs? So we're in this small Honda Civic and he's looking through my CDs and so many of them are the Pearl Jam CDs. And he's asking, what is this Pearl Jam? And then he finally gets to like a classical CD. And I can't remember who the artist is. Sheila may share in the chat. But there's only 2 songs on this CD and they're long songs, like 40 minutes each. And as he's listening to it, the first song had finished and he said, just press stop now. And I was surprised by that because it's a really lovely artist and CD and songs. And he said, there's no respite in this music. There's no respite. Am I saying that correctly? Is that the respite? Respite, I think is how you enunciate it. His point is, it is the quiet notes that help you to appreciate the musical notes. You're all thinking, yeah, like you're all artists too and singers. Yeah, we know Vivekji. We feel the same way. Our rishis are sacred sociologists. And even now, our politicians, who are selfish sociologists, they have created our calendars to give us respite. What did we all celebrate last month in Sanatana Dharma? Krishna Jayanti. Yes. What are the Canadians going to celebrate next month? Thanksgiving. What are the Americans celebrating the month after that? Thanksgiving. See, this respite is the time for one to rest, for one to refocus. You're all following me? Now, making this even more deep. A utsava, or a festival, is an opportunity to ideate. Please note that word. Please note this practice. What does ideation mean? Share with me in the chat. What does ideation mean? To create, to have new ideas. Exactly. It is to think about your life. Where did you come from? Where are you going? What do we do during festivals? We get lost in implementation. I have to decorate this. I have to cook this. I have to make this. If you only implement, as soon as that festival is over, what are you going to feel? All of your upliftment is going to come down. You've all felt that before. I see this with many people after a retreat or even after a course. They're so sad on the last day. We're going to miss seeing everyone's smiling faces. Then they'll tell me we're going to miss you, Vivekji, even though they're not going to. But they say it anyways out of formality. And I just want to hold their shoulders and say, what was I teaching you for the last 3 days? You think this is happiness, this food, this chair, this microphone? You are happiness. So every festival, ideate. Have you grown? Have you evolved? How are you going to grow? How are you going to evolve? And to complete the first line of our Moksha Pata, we've made it to square 10. Phew, but remember, there's no line less than this. Where will you fall? Off the board. And that is yatra. Yatra. Yatra means journey. How many of you have been on a yatra with me before? By show of hands. Wow, only a few. Okay. I'm going to leave this word here. I will explain more in our next class. Yatra means journey. Very simply, it is not a journey outside. It is a journey inside. Those who misinterpret this, when they go on journeys or pilgrimages, what do they come back with? Suitcases. Suitcases of stuff. But those who interpret this and understand this fully, what do they come back with? Quietude. They become quieter after a yatra.
If you enjoyed what you heard or want to learn more, share this episode with a friend or find us online at facebook.com/CM Niagara. For those on the journey of self-development, Chinmaya Mission Niagara provides a community forum for seekers to listen, reflect, and contemplate. This podcast is produced by the Young Adults of Chinmaya Mission, an international nonprofit working to transform individuals through the knowledge of Vedanta. Until next time, inspire, love, be.